Hello and welcome back to Mark's House and Garden UK. I've just been away for a few days and I've come back to an explosion of growth in the garden. Just look at this tetrapanax with its huge leaves. Look how big it's getting, and look behind me up there. The banana plants are about 12 foot tall now. I'm going to give you a tour of the garden at this stage in the year, which is towards the end of July. Before I get started on the tour, I want to say thank you to everyone who's visited my Amazon storefront, which I published a video about last week. I have to say my sales have gone up and I very much appreciate your support. Every penny I make from Amazon goes straight back into the garden. Right, without further ado, let's do a tour of the garden and then it'll be time to get down to some proper work. And I will be publishing a video of the plants of Santorini later in the day because that's where I was last week. Let's get touring the garden. And as usual, let's start off in the parterre garden at the front of Rose Cottage. This is also my white garden and you'll see why in a moment. The parterre has done incredibly well. I've just bought some shears, so this is going to have one of its first ever proper trims in the next week or so. I'm only going to trim it lightly and not too compact because I want to discourage box blight. Anyway, right, let's have a little bit of a look around this garden. This is why it's called the White Garden. Just look at these hydrangeas. They're absolutely splendid. Look at the size of that bloom there, look. There's my hand in comparison. In fact, let me adjust the camera and put my head next to one of these so that you can see just how enormous these blooms are. And all this is because I pruned it in January right back down to the base of each of these plants, and that's what it's rewarded me with. These lilies are from last year. I put them in the compound at the back of my garage and left them, and again they've come back to life. You've got to be careful with these because these stain your clothes, so don't brush up against them. And then I've got my white agapanthus, and I say white, they are all supposed to be white, but look at this. This is a rogue one, this is a blue one. That is going to be white, but these two appear to be blue. Now then, is the blue the true colour, or is the white the true colour? In any event, I do love these flowers, look at that. Beautiful. Now, the Peruvian daffodils, which are also supposed to be like white spider lilies, haven't really performed yet, but I did plant them late, so it could be that they'll come up later on in the year. Before we move over to the gravel garden, which is my newest garden, newest area of my garden, let's just have a look at these two cactuses here. I've just acquired two cactuses, and there's a couple of experiments that are going on propagating aloes and aloe veras. I'll have to look into doing some research on these cacti. Right, next up, the gravel garden, which is a project I've just completed, and I'll just show you around very briefly. It's a gravel arid desert bed, and it's populated by all these plants that love dry, sunny conditions. I've got some trachycarpus, sago palm. That's a curry plant down there. That's a cordyline. Now it has got some seeds on it, or fruit or berries, so I may try and propagate that. And then as we move around the garden, we'll see that we have some agaves, cycas revoluta. That's an aloe striatula there. And there is a black tree aeonium, and we've got some trachycarpus for structure. I do love this garden. I'm delighted with the results. I've also put some uplighters. Most of the things you'll see me talking about, you can find videos on my channel. Just search the keywords that you're looking for. So there's a video on those lights, for example. There's a video on the cycas. We're going to have a look at that lavender border in a moment, but look at these first. Sempervivums, which are put in this old trough. Look at how well these are doing. Starved of nutrients, but look at that. It's like an alien life form from another planet. Isn't that incredible? I've never seen the like. And these are all planted in these little tiny pots. That's Sempervivum arachnoideum, which is so called because it develops a kind of a web effect, like a spider's web. Of course, you probably know The Latin name for spider is arachnid, so that's arachnoidium. They're also called hens and chicks because you start off with one in the middle. You end up with lots of chicks around the outside, as you can see here. Wonderful plants. All this has to be tidied up. Now here is an olive tree which I rescued. Needs feeding. Probably needs a bit of a prune and needs a bit of food because it's in a pot. We'll come back to that. But look at this, my Mediterranean scented border. These lavenders started off about the size of a small football, and they've just gone incredibly well this year. They're so heavy in blossom and bloom that they're leaning over, and I'm giving them a really good soak here. But look at the effect that we're having here with the bees. Absolutely covered in bees. Now my friend in London, Tamir, has beehives, and he's promised me a swarm, so I might end up with a hive of bees in the garden. But look at that, they just love it. When the sun comes out later, as it's predicted to do, this will be swarming with bees and butterflies. Wonderful. These olives are planted in the ground, and you can see the difference. They do so much better when they're planted in the ground like this than when they're in pots, because in pots they have a limited resource of nutrients. So sometimes it's better if you can get them in the ground. At the back of this border I have rosemary. Buried down in here there are some Buxus sempervirens plants, but they're not really doing anything in there, so I might end up moving them. I can smell lavender as I walk along here. The next stop will be inside the exotic tropical jungle garden, and that's where that tetrapanax is. So let's wander through this gap in the bamboo hedge. This is supposed to be a gateway, but you can see the bamboo has just gone so mad. It is, by the way, in a cordoned off by a bamboo barrier. You can see down there, this is a running bamboo. It's not clump forming, so it's important that you do that. But just look at that. They just send up these huge, thick bamboo shoots. Let's go inside and have a look. Right, there's that enormous tetrapanax. I'm going to step back. Right, I'm 6 foot tall, and that is my head height, so you can see that how huge that tetrapanax has gone, and these leaves are about 18 inches across. Incredible. I've got several more of these in the garden, but this one has done particularly well. We've got Canamusifolia down the back there. That's not been affected by the virus. And then up here we have my Musa Basdew, and I've told you how I've managed to protect the height by protecting the pseudo trunk, which is actually leaves for the winter. Tucked away down at the back there we have those taros, which were bulbs I bought from an Asian supermarket and planted. That's a colocasia, and it's doing really well down there. And there's another example down here in and amongst the Persicaria red dragon. This is colocasia pink china with its lovely pink stalks, doing incredibly well. And here we have a Himalayan ginger and a purple canna. And then we shall move around to Fatsia japonica here. And then look at this, the passion flower. It's just wonderful. And look at these incredible flowers on the passion flower. Look at that. Excuse me, I'm going to cough. Apologies for that. Had a tickle there. Right, look at that. Aren't they incredible? And this is just covered in buds. The tip here is if you want all these buds to survive, keep it well watered. Otherwise they will disappear. I think there's about 120. It's a very loose count. Aren't they incredible? Look at that. Right, let's get back down to earth. And there is another tetrapanax which has run off as a pup. Oh, look at that. That little leaf there. It's got a little golden globe of moisture or water in the bottom of it. Can you see? Isn't it beautiful? Like a little jewel. I've put some Ansete Murilli red banana here. Just to fill in a couple of gaps, because if you remember I did remove some virused cannas. So there's another red banana there. This was incredible. It was a foxtail lily, but it flowered whilst I was away, so I didn't really get any images of it. But look, it's got little seeds on it. I might try and propagate that. Some more pink chinas in here. That's a pineapple lily, bicolour. Bicolour because it has two colours leaves. It has green leaves and chocolatey leaves. And I'm hoping that down in there we will end up getting some flower spikes coming up. But interesting, look at this. I've used sticks off my apple trees to support these plants. Can you see there, tied up with string? These are gingers. This is another type of ginger here. But I've used these apple stalks or branches just stuck in the ground. But look, they've started to grow. They've taken root. So I'll end up, if I'm not careful, with a little orchard of apples. Right, the next stage is the fernery, which starts here with this small tree fern. And then, of course, as you probably know, we move into the proper fernery, the tree fern garden, I suppose you might call it. Look at these wonderful specimens. Isn't that amazing? They do incredibly well here in this little courtyard at the back of the cottage because it's sheltered. It's damp and it gets quite damp and cool in here. So these tree ferns, which are like living under the canopy in the forest, do very well. And they cast a lovely shade over the fernery, which is populated by lots of ferns. Something very interesting to show you about these ferns, and lots of hostas. That was a beautiful arum lily which has now gone over. I might have an image of that somewhere I can drop in, but look at the size of the leaves on these hostas. Again, massive big leaves. That's Jurassic Park, which is supposed to be slug and snail resistant, and they do seem to be doing okay. That's Crinium thwilii. I like the foliage on that, but it does also produce a beautiful purple flower. Another nice tree fern, and some more ferns at the base. And look at the mind your own business. This green carpet, just completely crazy. It's quite an invasive plant. This is exactly the effect I wanted. Look at it, the way it's going all the way around. Another arum lily there. Underneath there, there's a hart's tongue fern. There's a little Buddha's face down there, hidden away. And you see. And then we have another tree fern here, and a leaning tree fern. This is, Cyathea cooperi. It's like a tree fern, but it's not hardy. It's just come into its own. It's just starting to get going. It didn't really do very much at the start of the season. Right, let me show you something interesting about these ferns. This is how they propagate. They have spores on the underside of their leaves. Can you see those? Is the camera picking that up? And these mature and develop, and then eventually they burst open and sort of give out a powder, which is a spore rather than a seed. And that spore then develops into the next stage, which is not an actual plant. It's like an in-between stage between the spore and the plant. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but you can propagate these. You put the leaf in a folded piece of white paper, and when the spores explode from these little nodules, you put them on damp soil and some of them will grow, but these, covered in them. First I thought there was some kind of caterpillar egg, but then I did some research. Look, I think that one there has started to mature and possibly even burst open. Okay, we're going over to the wildlife pond next. Before we go there, just look at this. Miscanthus giganteus. Look at that grass. We've put that there to screen that wall, and it's doing a great job. Wonderful. That's a new Trachycarpus. I spent some of my YouTube money on that this month. And it's got 2 trunks. I'm going to try and separate them and get 2 plants for the price of 1. This is an echium, and I'm trying to collect seeds from it on this tray. Can you see there? Right, what did I say? Oh yes, wildlife garden. Let's get there next. It's over there. So this whole corner of the garden is dedicated and cordoned off for wildlife. It's 2 mounds, and we've got 2 tree ferns. Now, there was a debate whether these would do well out here in the open because they're quite exposed. We've not had a great deal of sunshine yet, but they seem to be doing okay so far. Do keep them wet. Gunners are still in tubs because it's now illegal to plant them in the garden. These mounds have just got completely weeded, so I'm going to have to get in there with my grubbing hoe. Now that there is the Trachycarpus, which are divided, and again it's surviving and it's doing really well. All those are new leaves. We've got a free plant there. They're not cheap. Some of these fascias are getting too much light, and that's why I want all this to grow up. Persicaria red dragon. Let's just wander around the side of here. Great big boulders which kind of form an entrance. So we've got Persicaria red dragon. The theme here is purple. That's a cornus dogwood which I took a cutting from down the lane on a plant, all taken. A juga, again a purple plant. Fatsia, a bit white, a bit sun bleached, getting too much light. Well, we'll see how it does. Trachycarpus fortunii, and then we've got some Photinias, and then an Acer, obviously. But look at this buddleia here. Look at the colour on this buddleia. It's just an intense purple. This just attracts so many butterflies and pollinating insects into the garden. There's a lovely white one over there, which we'll see in a moment, and there's a sort of a slightly pinky purple one over there. Let's get inside now and have a look at the wildlife pond, which is just how I want it. Now, some people wouldn't like this because in a way it's got too much green on top of the water. That is what I want, and that is how I will keep it. All that greenery on the water stops the sunlight from penetrating, so it gives you a lovely clear, clean water. And at night time I'm coming out most nights now and looking at the baby newts. They're mostly nocturnal, so you don't see them in the day. And frogs and toads. Here's another one of those beautiful butterfly bushes. Again, I did a video on how to prune this. There's a way of pruning this to get it to blossom at eye level, where you get the scent and you get to look at these lovely flowers. So again, search buddleia on my channel. Over there is my wildflower mound, so we'll head in that direction, but on the way over there we'll just look. There's my garage block, which again, if you follow my channel, you'll know I'm also doing videos on converting that into a luxury annex for guest accommodation. There's a fig tree, which a friend of mine gave me, Fig Tree Rescue. It was virtually dead. It's doing really, really well. And then we've got lots of ferns along the bottom of here. I need to come out here and do some weeding. It's gone a bit mad. Paulownia, lovely big tree which I put there for shade. It's got lovely big leaves and it's just got established because it's just started putting out lots of new growth. Look at the tree fern here that this is going to be a new pond. I keep procrastinating on this. I need to get on with it and get it finished. But look at the tree fern here, which is leaf over water. So you'll get the double reflection. But since I've planted it, it seems to be getting some nutrients from down there in the soil, because it's suddenly started producing lots of lovely new fronds, which is unusual, I think, for this time of year when we're into July, August. And we have the wildflower mound. Well, look at the red on this poppy. Look at that colour of red on that poppy there. It's just incredible. And then all whites and another one of those beautiful deep purple buddleias at the back. All these flowers came from last year's seeds. And we've just been, butterfly's just done a fly past and it's landed on a rock. Let me see if I can get it for you. Oh no, I missed it. It's flown off. They're so skittish, butterflies. They don't stay still long enough. And here's another one of those slightly different coloured buddleias. Slightly purple colour. And then we look back over the pond to the cottage in the distance. It's quite picturesque. I mean, it's not lost on me the fact that that cottage is approaching 500 years old. And we're just here for a decade or so. So we're just sort of custodians, really. So I do appreciate being able to live in a place like this. And there's a wildlife pond, which again, if you follow my channel, you'll know that one of the sole objectives of that was to encourage frogs, toads and newts. And we've had all three. And we've now got a colony of great crested newts, which are the protected ones. Love it. Just love that completely wild effect. Eventually there's going to be a viewing platform up there with a gazebo on it, up on the top of that mound. But that's to be done in the future. I always leave some nettles in the garden. They're great as a wildlife plant. And at the back of there is where I throw all my garden waste, all organic waste. That's what that's doing there. It's waiting to be thrown on the pile. That will be full of wildlife from the bottom end of the food chain all the way up to rodents. And then of course at night time you get the owls, and there's a light aircraft just going over, so I apologise if you're disturbed by the noise. The carpet that you see here is for lining these new ponds. Now let's go into my compound area. This is not an area that you see very often. It's kind of a workspace, if you like, but I've got quite a few experiments going on at the moment. That's a lavender that I've planted into a long deep tube because I forgot to prune it, so all the growth was at the top. I'm hoping it will root up here at the top. Some cuttings, holly cuttings. Here's a black bamboo that I rescued, and it's doing really well now. It's sending up all these new leaves, so that's great. Got a little tub of spare sempervivums there, so I need to decide what I'm going to do there. Here's an olive tree cutting. We'll go and have a look at the olive trees in the olive grove. And a little half barrel there that a friend of mine, actually my singing teacher, she gave me some spare for plants. So I've done a little tub, and every time I come in here it reminds me of Suzanne. I've got some cornflowers, antirrhinums, and some lupins. Yeah, a nice little selection of plants, and that will just grow up and fill out. And look at that again. More of these hens and chicks. I had so many spare that I just constructed this little trough and planted them, and again they've propagated themselves. Next is the asparagus. I'm aware that this is becoming a bit of a whistle-stop tour. I don't want to bore you, so I'm just getting through things really. The asparagus is doing really well. That will be feeding the rootstock, but it's also at the moment still sending out new spears. They came up whilst I was away. And we've got a little Annabelle cutting there, which is doing well. That's going up to my mum's. My mum gave me those Annabelles at the front of the cottage, so she's going to have the cuttings. Look at that. That's the end of a celery that I planted, and it's growing. And two bok choys which are growing. And then this is that multicoloured veg bed that I did, and I only planted this about a month ago, but all the seeds seem to be germinating. But the interesting thing about this is, I mean, I've got both veg and herbs, and it's multicoloured. You've got all different types of chard and kale and radishes. The radishes are a very quick crop. Can you see there? Look, they're already producing radishes down there. The funny thing and interesting thing is, I had a mole in here. I came down the other day, and there was can you see a kind of a ridge there on the top of the soil? And a mole has come in. There's a little molehill down the side, can you see? And a mole's come in here and come up to the surface and had a root round and then gone away again. But you can see there's a little tunnel where it's possibly even poked its head up. Hope it doesn't eat the roots from my newly planted raised veg bed. Got one more thing to see here before we go and have a look at the olives, and it's in that bathtub over there. You're probably looking at some things that you've just seen and thinking, what's an untidy mess? And I wouldn't disagree, it is at the moment all a little bit untidy. This time of year things just get away with you, don't they? This bathtub, I separated an aloe vera and I tried to do some leaf cuttings. The ones that I've separated have all taken. There's a leaf cutting there that looks as if it might have survived, but the other leaf cuttings are looking a little bit anemic. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. That's a baby agave. There's another baby agave. These are two agaves. Right. Let's go and have a look at the olive grove. And then we're done on our garden tour for end of July. By the way, over here, the rose bush which I moved from the front of the cottage 2 years ago went into a tub, and I've just repotted it again, and it's come back to life. Look. Incredibly resilient. That rose bush must have good genes. And there's the second one which is doing the same. Right, olive grove, here we come. So this is the olive grove. It's going to be an olive grove. It's going to have citrus plants. It's going to be gravelled, and there's going to be a water feature with a rill and a path. But so the first thing I've done is got the main structure in with these beautiful olive trees, which again, if you search olive trees on my channel, you'll find these. These are from Costco, believe it or not. A bargain price. I'm constantly coming out here and pulling out weeds which are competing so they can come out. Look at the taproot on that weed. These are for watering. I've sunken some pots in there so they can get the water deep into the soil. They're also putting out little baby shoots, so these all have to be pruned off periodically. Look at those lovely old gnarled trunks. Well, they've definitely put roots down because I've got loads of new growth up there. Lots of new growth on these beautiful old olive trees. I'm told that these may be a couple of 100 years old. And they have a new lease of life here. The reason these are imported into the UK is because in places where they produce olives and olive oil, they have a new way of farming and a new way of harvesting, which involves younger trees, which are harvested by machines. In the old days, it was done by hand. These can't be harvested by machines because they're too thick and too strong. So they're all being replaced. So this is a byproduct, which is actually helping the countries that they come from. I've been accused of almost like raping and pillaging foreign countries just for my own benefit by buying these olive trees, but not the case, happily. They're byproducts of the fact that olive and olive oil farming is changing. I think we're done now. That's the guided tour for today. I've got quite a few jobs to get on with. I've got to relocate that terrace, forest flame, and several other jobs around the garden, which I will obviously do videos on. And I'll see you soon for some house and garden adventures. Bye for now.